Welcome to the 2021 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. I'm host Tony. Thank you for joining me once again on this Sunday, December 5th, 2021. Well, today we're going to be talking about two things in particular: the disappointing jobs growth report for November, and also what the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell must do now that inflation is no longer transitory, but it appears to be growing substantially higher than what everyone as economists have believed the last 2 months. And also, we're going to be talking about 5 survival skills that you will need to survive when society collapses, according to popularmechanics.com article. It's back in 2016, but it's a very useful article here. So we're going to get back into the jobs growth numbers here right now. I thank you for joining me once again on this report. We have the CNBC.com comes out with the job report number. This was on Friday. It disappoints in November with a gain of just 200,000 despite high hopes. This is seasonally adjusted numbers, non-farm payrolls. But the thing that's going to be really key here is that the job growth numbers is starting to stagnate. So even unemployment, official unemployment, I use quotation marks, is going down to 4.2%, as you can see here. The actual numbers that are participating in the labor force of workers is actually declining. And so that creates a situation where we have not too many people in the labor force, or those returning to the labor force from the pandemic back in April 2020. We're going almost into 2 years into post-pandemic here, or still in the midst of a pandemic. And you can see the numbers in the non-farm payrolls are just now rising up to less than 4 million, about 3.9 million. So this is seasonally adjusted, of course. So we're just trying to get back up to normal. We're still about another 3 to 4 million jobs away from normal full employment, as they like to call it. So as you can see, the unemployment rate spiked as high as 14.8% at the beginning of the pandemic back in March of 2020 or April of 2020, and now we're down to 4.2%. But that looks good on paper. But what you have to remember is that it doesn't count those workers who are working part-time gig jobs, gig economy jobs, or more than one job, and it doesn't count those people who have given up looking for full-time employment as well. Many people are not getting a full-time hours. They're getting 35 hours or less, or 30 hours or less, and so that's not counted in those numbers as well. And leisure and hospitality makes up a majority of those jobs, but it only saw a gain this time of 23,000 jobs, according to this report. And so now we have a situation where Chairman Powell is looking at the Federal Reserve. He's looking at, now he's been reelected, as you know, for the next 4 years to head the board, along with his assistant, Ms. Lael Brainerd. But Powell, according to MarketWatch.com, what Powell must do after admitting that he was wrong about the transitory inflation. So remember before, they were telling us earlier this year that it's just going to be transitory as the economy works through all the printed money that's been printing up with all the stimulus checks and the $300 tax credit, child tax credit, and all of this stuff. Well, now Powell was admitting that he was wrong. The transitory inflation is no longer there, and now we're heading to an inflation that's going to last for the next 2 to 3 years at a minimum. It could be as long as 2025 before this inflation subsides. Okay, so now they have to figure out what they're going to do to deal with this, to remedy this. And the only way to remedy this hyperinflation is to raise interest rates, and that's exactly what they're going to do, is raise interest rates. So it's going to cost more for consumers, for you and I, product sales consumers, to purchase products. It's going to cost more to borrow money, loans from the bank, for houses, cars, discretionary, personal loans, HELOCs, you name it. It's going to cost more money because now, as you look at the year-by-year change, look at how inflation now is on the rise. We're up to about 4.3%. Okay, and this is according to their report. Core inflation. Now, this strips out food and energy prices. So we have core inflation right now at 4.3%, as you can see on this graph. Now, if we add in food and energy prices, you're talking about inflation as high as 7-8%. And shadowstats.com places real inflation at 15 to 20% right now. Okay, so we know that to be the case, that is no longer subsidiary. So what's going to come down to, ladies and gentlemen, is the core staple goods: food, shelter, transportation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You study that in school, but the food, safety, transportation, self-preservation, those needs are going to have to be met. And when that becomes critical, at a critical point or a critical mass, where enough people are seeing that the money isn't going, the US dollar isn't going as far as it used to, it doesn't matter how strong the dollar index appears to be in this wacky Dow Jones economy. Eventually, the people are going to smell the music and realize that this inflation is going to be just absolutely destroy the dollar's purchasing power. And that's going to be when other countries in the world are going to say, look, we got to find a way to get off this dollar, whether it's cryptos or some kind of Chinese yuan backed dollar, or gold backed dollar. It's something like that is coming, because this is what's going to happen. They're not going to be able to control the inflation. And once again, this article points towards forward policy guidance is that they're going to have to move faster in tapering its monthly asset purchases. Right now, we do up to $120 billion purchases. They were tapering that down to 80 and 60 billion, supposed to be beginning next month, January 2022. But they're going to have to move much faster on this whole tapering thing. And that means rates are going to rise much faster, ladies and gentlemen. So you don't be surprised by the first quarter of next year. I'm talking about March 2022. Federal Reserve Bank is either going to raise interest rates by at least a quarter of a percentage point, maybe even a full point at this point. They might be served them justice because they're behind the curve on this inflation. So, 5 survival skills you need when society collapses. Now, listen, this is not a total collapse, okay? We know that our economy is still functioning on a band-aid, but this is survival skills that you need regardless of whether you're in the city, hinterland, urban land, you name it. You need these skills to think about. Building an axe, okay? You need some way to cut down wood for shelter, as you've seen on these survival shows. You need an axe or some kind of, chainsaw or a hacksaw. Those are critical things that you need, okay? Building a shelter. Obviously, you can anything from a grass hut to a log cabin to a shelter made out of those what are those things? The foil things, the mylar things, and make it's kind of foil things that you can make a shelter out of, along with sticks too as well. Making a lovely garden. Now this is critical. Okay, you can make a garden even in the urban city, whether that's of things like peppers and potatoes, or tomatoes, or berries, or chives, herbs, whatever you can, sweet potatoes. Start growing those now. Start learning, testing it out. Even some people are doing hydroponics. I've heard of that in people's apartments and condos in Atlanta and other cities. They're doing hydroponics, where they're growing stuff in water inside their apartments and condos and townhomes and houses. So you can do that too as well. And this is all about sustainable living, and that's what we're going towards. It's all part of the Agenda 2030, UN Agenda, Sustainable Goals. But we're going to need this because, as you know, food is getting more expensive to purchase and to distribute through these shipping ports. Whipping up a distance weapon. Now, this is like a slingshot, some kind of slingshot mechanism and rocks. Obviously, there's all kind of, weapons. And security is going to be your number one or number two asset behind prayer, keeping close to God, and also behind, food security and food shelter and all that. Security is going to be the number one thing you're going to be thinking about. Whether that's having a fence, some cameras, you can get Waze outdoor cameras to secure your property, that zoom in and zoom out. They're wireless. You can just mount them up on poles, and you have somewhat of a buffer zone, to see who's around your perimeter. And building yourself a basket, I'm not so sure about that. I think if you have, obviously we have utility buckets, and we have wheelbarrows and things of that nature on our property. And a lot of people do too as well, and other things. You really don't need a basket per se, but it's a good skill to know if you want to use a basket to add different things and have it hiding that people won't know what's in a basket per se, if you have to get that out. Because if the grid goes down, okay, which we believe solar flares are going to continue to make the impact, as well as earthquakes and that thing. Natural disasters are going to come, and that can disrupt the grid. Okay, you can have one day of a brownout where you don't have electricity as strong as you used to, and that's going to happen over here in the Western world sooner or later. So we need to be prepared for that as well, in this times and now. But I hope everyone has had a blessed weekend. I hope you've got some time to take some time out to enjoy a walk out in nature, whether that's in the park or whether that's in the nature trail or whether it's on a boat or out, take some time out to, reflect and thank God for everything that he's done. We're still alive. We're still breathing. We're still enjoying the good, calm times right now before things get really crazy and really excited in both the housing market, the credit market to watch out for in 2022 drying up, as well as the shipping shortage continue and hyperinflation. Those are the headlines through the first 3 months of 2022 that we want to look out for, and not to mention any black swans like there could be of conflict overseas or something like that too as well. Just want to fill you in. You guys be blessed and take care. I'll see you in the next report. Thank you very much.